Today we're going to talk about 5 tips by Arthur Brooks on dating and relationships. So the first is that he doesn't really think that dating apps really do a too good job. And the reason why is that when we make our profile, we often say the kind of things that we do, and when we look at other people's profiles, we basically try to find someone who's as similar to us as possible. And that is great for compatibility. However, it may be a little too compatible because, if you think about it, you wouldn't necessarily be attracted to, for example, your sibling. That would be really unsexy, and it's also good that way because we're not supposed to be attracted to people who are too similar to us, who have too much of our genetics in common, because that wouldn't be very good for our offspring. Because if we were to get together with someone who is totally similar to us, like a sibling, for example, that could lead to, for example, your offspring becoming disabled, unfortunately. So basically, dating apps enable us to go on many, many dates. However, we tend to not be attracted to the people we match with because they are so similar to us, because we are looking for these things that we have in common. And then the second tip would be that in movies, it's all about romance, and the romantic thing never is that, oh, now they're best friends, but that they've got this incredible chemistry and this wonderful spark. However, in real life, this spark will wear off at some point. And in that case, the best you can hope for when that spark wears off is to be like best friends with your romantic partner. It sounds awful for us because movies and so on always depict it as this magical spark that will last forever, but in real life those hormones unfortunately wear off at some point, and then we can be very happy if there's like a great friendship behind that. And the third thing would be that love in general, or giving your heart to someone, can be very risky, and that he thinks that it's like, because it's so risky, that it's a very entrepreneurial thing to do. And many people nowadays want to call themselves entrepreneurs. But if you're too scared to fall in love with someone, that's not necessarily a very entrepreneurial thing to do to stay away from relationships. For example, there was this really interesting study that shows that we are actually attracted to people who are like kind of opposites from us. So, for example, this study was a little bit disgusting, poor participants, but never mind. So basically there were t-shirts of different men there, and the female participants had to sniff the armpits of those t-shirts, and then they had to basically say which smell they liked the most. I can't necessarily imagine myself, if I took part in this study, liking any of those armpit smells, but never mind, that's a different topic. But never mind somehow. Anyway, let's change the topic and get back to what's actually important. So basically what they found is that the females actually were attracted to the smell of those t-shirts, of those men whose genetics was basically like the total opposite of theirs, which is supposed to be like that and is natural because, as I've explained, that nature wouldn't necessarily find it too good if we got together with people who are too similar to us, because that would lead to offspring that isn't as healthy and, in the worst case, disabled. And then the fourth tip is that when we think of a good friend, we usually think about, or we tend to like it when our friends tell us when, for example, something goes wrong in our relationship, we have a fight or so, that they're like on our side and tell us that we've done everything right and our partner is the one who is wrong in the situation. But according to Arthur Brooks, those aren't good friends. Your true good friends would point out what you did wrong in that fight to make sure that you learn from your mistakes and that your relationship actually improves. So, for example, there's this thing that Laurie Gottlieb often says, that there's like wise compassion and idiot compassion. So wise compassion basically is when you are very compassionate towards that other person but you also, in a very friendly, loving way, tell them where they might have gone wrong, what they could have done better. Whereas idiot compassion is just telling the other friend, for example, that they did everything right and that the other person did everything wrong, because it basically like blinds us. And then the fifth tip would be that there are 4 basic negative emotions: fear, disgust, sadness, and anger. So contrary to what most people would think, anger isn't necessarily that bad in relationships. Of course, it's better if you don't have any anger at all or hardly, but anger is there because we care about something, and if we didn't care about our partner, that also would be a problem. But obviously you don't want to be angry at your partner all the time. So in moderation, anger isn't that bad for relationships. What's very bad for relationships though is disgust, because that basically means that you look down on your partner. And by the way, anger and disgust combined is basically contempt. And according to John Gottman's research with the 4 horsemen, which lead to a relationship ending the most, so that would be criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt. And contempt of all these 4 horsemen is what leads to relationships ending the most. So anger combined with disgust, being contempt, would be the thing that kills relationships the most. If you want to know more about how to have a healthy relationship and also more tips by John Gottman, you can watch this video here.